when you are talking about the public solution and the public judgment on this, is this this example that you gave at the end, is this an example of the unwise spending of public money? Shall we invest actually in capturing animals artificially? Is this part of preserving the biodiversity? Or is this a part of an example that we should invest more money at the natural parks like those in Kenya? Probably it's very difficult to judge. And when we talk about the role of the parliament, it's making even more complicated, and in terms of responsibility even worse, because I could say that when it comes to implementation and enforcement of legislation which concerns European citizens, not animal welfare, we also struggle with finding legislative base for this, but also we also struggle with convincing member states that they should implement and enforce it, let's say, on some urgent issues, really according to the correlation table, if any. And as regard to animals, there is a lot of legislation concerning animals in this house, more probably one could say more than concerning human beings sometimes, but it doesn't mean that we are doing well. And when I read the reports, it doesn't seem to me that there is a member state which is actually, by so far, those which are mentioned in the report, which is doing quite well. When I read about my own country, it looked like 9 out of 10, or all 10 of the zoos are doing pretty bad. I felt somehow concerned and a little bit ashamed, but I didn't find a way actually to communicate this concern through any NGOs or to any organizations that could help to improve it and to use some pressure on the responsible authorities. Neither I was able to find actually a way that it should be, apart from this seminar, we are doing it the first time here in the Parliament, how we should communicate without creating more administrative burden and without creating more bureaucracy, to make the responsible authorities talking to each other and exchanging best practices. What's the best way actually to deal with this? This is a question mark. And any suggestions for further work will be, of course, welcome, but I will be more than happy if there are more questions and if we could have more suggestions. Where to go from now on? This is an open question. And one thing I have in mind on the involvement of the Parliament is that we always can have either a hearing within the ENVI committee or even in the plenary on the implementation and enforcement of the directive, and to make clear and to make the appropriate proposals further on in a resolution to the Commission and to Member States what should be done. This is a minor step, but it might help. I could not say that there will be a strong political commitment, but without doing such a thing and without bringing the comparison and bringing the data about the different practices in member states, probably nobody will mention it, nobody will know. As, for example, I'm new into this topic, but it's worrying me. So I think it will be the case for most of my colleagues, and this is one initiative that we can take on board. If there are other proposals, of course, it will be helpful, but having, let's say, having oral question on the implementation and enforcement with resolution and discussion in the Parliament, do you think it might help? And I think the Commission can provide us with this communication and this information. Yeah, it is to you. Do you think it will help if the Parliament is actually using this procedural opportunity? If we have a directive in which most of the member states fail actually to implement it or to enforce it, it means either there is a problem with the directive as such, as a piece of legislation, or then there is more guidance needed or more time, or something is wrong in the entire perception of such a legislation or the notion of the existence, as actually it has been mentioned here, on the existence of the zoos as such. Then broader debate on this is needed. And You are absolutely right that we can communicate and we can help on this communication with the member states for preparing their action plans, but still, after having some experience in this House, and after having some experience in how we can require from member states to come up with national action plan and such on very important issues, as, for example, cancer. And there is a reason for mentioning it. And having the fact at the end that we end up with health inequalities of 6 and 7 times differences in cancer morbidity and mortality between member states, you can imagine what would have been an issue which is not even considered as a being of public importance or of urgency to take decisions. So in this regard, I don't want to say that I'm very skeptical, but I don't trust very much action plans, because I know how member states, after being strongly encouraged, this is the language that we use in our resolution, strongly encouraged to respond to any piece of legislation, activity, or whatsoever, they come up with these national plans to have a couple of years to the next generation of government to get inspected or whatsoever. So I don't see this as a very efficient way of actually ending up with positive outcome for the animals, at least.